zip up your members-only jacket, crack open a tab, and pause your Walkman as we bring you to the 1980s.
Welcome to the 80s Show podcast, where we talk about all things 1980s. From movies to TV shows, music and stars, fads and fashions, we'll talk about anything and everything to do with the 1980s.
The 1980s, the best decade in decades.
All right, my name is Bill Lassiter alongside Damon Raffelli. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey through the 1980s. You can always follow us on all the social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of that. And you can always email us at 80showpodcast@gmail.com. I am excited about the show today, Damien. What about you?
I am too. It's a really fun one. Watching Iron Eagle and Top Gun and back to back was a lot of fun.
All right, so tell us what we're going to be talking about this week.
Well, as I just mentioned, we're going to be comparing Top Gun to Iron Eagle as our first segment.
That's right. Then we're going to finish up with we're going to go on to talking about the sequel to Top Gun Maverick, just a little bit about that, and then finally, Damien, we're going to end up doing what?
We're going to ask a millennial.
Yeah, that's right. We've got some 80s trivia where I went on the streets and asked some millennials about, to see how well they know the 1980s. And Damien, I was a little disappointed. I'll be honest, but that's all right. We'll save that for later. So
they're clearly not listening to this podcast. We got to get more millennials to get their 80s acumen up to speed.
That's right. So, so Damien, we do have some listener feedback, I guess. Damien, you want to explain this?
Yeah, so we did have some feedback after the last episode that we did called "Cocaine Drives the 80s,"
right?
And we just want to make our stance clear. In fact, we ran a couple of anti-drug PSAs.
Well, first of all, glad you said anti-drug. Go ahead. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
In our first Lost episode, we found 2 episodes that were just released a few weeks back, and that was the My Little Werewolf, and we had Nancy Reagan and Clint Eastwood telling us, "Hey, don't do crack, don't do cocaine, don't do drugs." Period.
That's right.
And so I just want to make our stance clear: the 80s Show podcast does not condone cocaine. The 1980s does.
Wait, what? Yeah. Okay. So yes, we do. People do not do cocaine. If you're influenced by the 1980s, you might though, but not the 80s Show podcast. Is that what we're saying, Damien?
Yes, that's what we're saying.
All right. So we want to be clear with everybody. We do not condone the use of cocaine or crack cocaine, as Pee Wee Herman. No, as Clint Eastwood said.
Right, but the entire decade does.
Okay. Even if you want to finance your motor company, don't do it. Don't traffic it either, right?
Yeah, it doesn't always work out well. Just say no.
All right, Damien, we got exciting news here on the podcast. We have yet another new sponsor, Columbia House.
I'm excited about this one because I really need some money to pay off my Columbia House debts from the 1980s. In fact, I still have warrants out from my arrest, I think, for all those tapes that I'd ordered, those Bill Cosby tapes and U2 tapes that I ordered as a child and never paid for.
Well, I'm glad they're with us. Now remember, Columbia House, any 12 records or tapes for just 1 cent, a small price to pay for a giant chunk of music.
Pick any 11 records or tapes for a penny and see how to get even more music free. Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, Dire Straits, Phil Collins, hundreds more. All the music you love. The Columbia Record and Tape Club.
Our first segment here on the 80 Show podcast is we're going to talk about the 1980 classic movies, Iron Eagle and Top Gun. Now, originally, as we were planning our episodes out, Damien and I were going to do a movie battle. We're going to pick one or the other and kind of battle it out as far as which movie is better. And then what happened, Damien?
Well, we actually rewatched Iron Eagle. That's what happened.
Oh, gosh. It is so bad, people. We'll get to that in a second, but we cannot have a true movie battle when we know one is already the loser, right?
Yeah, there's just no contest in this one.
Yeah. So, Damon, go ahead.
I was going to say, even a master debater could not win that argument that Iron Eagle is better than Top Gun.
No comment. All right. So, Damien, tell us a little bit about Iron Eagle and Top Gun, like numbers, box office numbers, and things like that.
Right. These are both classic films, both released in 1986. However, that's where the comparison stops. There. Iron Eagle did about $24 million at the box office against a $10 million budget.
All right.
I'm not sure where that $10 million went, but we'll talk more about that. It was the number 41 movie of 1986.
Oh.
It ranked right between some of my favorite movies, Spies Like Us and Three Amigos.
Ooh. So it was better than Three Amigos then?
It didn't rank just higher than that, but I'm going to guess
Gosh, that's terrible.
there was a lower budget
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
because they had a plethora of
A
money.
plethora of piñatas. All right.
Iron Eagle spawned 3 sequels, however.
I don't know how that's possible, Damien. Like, Louis Gossett Jr., classically trained actor, fantastic, but they made 4 of those before they made 2 Top Guns, right? Like, crazy.
I think 1 or 2 of the Iron Eagles might have been direct to video. I'm not sure.
Probably. All right, tell us a little bit about Top Gun.
So Top Gun did slightly better at the box office. It was the number 1 movie of 1986.
Of course.
Just beating out, surprisingly, Crocodile Dundee was the number 2 movie in 1986.
Crocodile Dundee was a number 2 movie. Oh my gosh! Wow!
Crikey.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Karate Kid 2 was number 3, which not surprised at, of course.
I'm the man who will fight for your honor. All right.
And so, like I said, Iron Eagle did about $24 million. Top Gun did about $177 million at the box office. Against a $15 million budget, it was only $5 million more than Iron Eagle, and they created a masterpiece.
Oh, that I mean, $15 million budget. I mean, that movie was great. They must have gotten some help from the Navy and things like that to pay for some of the effects and things like that.
Yeah, they definitely, we'll talk a little bit more about that. They definitely had the support of the Navy versus Iron Eagle did not have the support of the U.S. Air Force.
That's right. So it's funny because both Damien and I remember Iron Eagle fondly. It was one of my favorite movies, and I think maybe it was on it was on a lot of reruns, or it was on basic cable a lot or something like that. I remember watching it over and over again as a kid.
Absolutely. I was about 13 when both of these movies came out, and I remembered loving Iron Eagle, right? I mean, of course, I love Top Gun, too. And Top Gun came out on VHS. I remember my brother and I watching it and probably rented a Blockbuster. And the weekend that we had it, we had it for a couple of days. We watched Top Gun over and over.
Yeah.
But I also watched Iron Eagle a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, probably at least 10 times, even I think I watched it once or twice in college.
Yeah. And so, just so everybody knows, it does not hold up. It does not hold up. So basically, if you don't remember the plot of Iron Eagle, it stars. Well, I don't know. I don't care what the kid's name is, the actor, but his name was Doug in the movie, right? Doug Masters. He's your average '80s kid. He loves fighter jets. He listens to cassette tapes, and somehow he has access to a military base.
Yeah, he and all of his Air Force buddies, who were actually just children of other Air Force personnel,
Right.
They have the entire run of the Air Force base that they're on, including top secret intelligence.
Yeah. Really, really, really good there. So, in the course of the movie, the beginning of the movie starts out, Doug's dad, who's an Air Force pilot, he gets shot down over a totally made up Middle Eastern country. It's just, it's Evilston, I don't know.
Well, it was in North Africa, run by a colonel, so it's totally not Libya, right?
No,
it's not a thinly veiled attempt at being Libya.
That was not Gaddafi at all. So, and the government says, we don't negotiate with terrorists or made up countries. So, but Doug's like, you know what? Hold my Walkman. I want to go and rescue my dad. And so instead of writing, a strongly worded letter to Congress, he decides to just, I'm just going to go rescue him myself. Right. Solid plan, right, Damien?
Yeah, I think this is where young Damien liked this movie a lot, because this was about a group of teenagers who went rogue, doing something the adults wouldn't do, right? They saw something that should have been done, and they don't have the concept of international incidents, and they don't care about the consequences.
Right. And so enter Chappie, played by the great Louis Gossett Jr., who deserves better than this role, but he did 4 films in this franchise. So, I mean, he won an Academy Award for An Officer and Gentleman. He won an Emmy for Roots. I mean, this is a classically trained actor playing this Chappie in Iron Eagle, right?
Yeah, I will say as soon as he shows up in the movie gets immediately better. But
It's
he
true.
makes all the actors look much worse
Oh,
because
yeah.
he is such a good actor. I mean,
Yeah.
he really is, even though the script is awful.
Yeah.
They have him doing some weird things with the dancing.
Right, yeah.
when he's looking over the maps and everything. So there were some weird scenes, but he did a great job. I'll say he sold it. He made this movie, definitely.
And maybe that's why we liked it so much, because we were looking for that male father figure
Exactly.
at that age. So anyway, he agrees to help this man-child pull off this heist on a U.S. airbase and launch an unauthorized military assault. When I say it, it just is like crazy.
Look, I'm telling you right now, I bet you can get a plane. All the firepower it can carry, aerial recon, intelligence. I got the whole goddamn base wired.
Here's how they prep for the combat, Damien, is number one, they steal classified files. Super easy, right?
Yeah, you can just walk in any Air Force base in the 80s
Yeah.
and just steal classified information, apparently.
Yeah, now very 80s-ish, they train using a home flight simulator.
Yeah. Yeah, and the military did have those, in fact. But it's surprisingly, the Air Force did not want to work with them, just showing how easy it was to steal
Yeah,
technology and intelligence and F-16s from an Air Force base. Really weird. Yeah.
Exactly. It was interesting. We did some research and we found out that the U.S. Air Force said, no, we're not going to help you out because you're stealing a thing. And so who did they contact, Damien?
The Israeli Air Force, who had F-16s they were buying from the U.S.
Yeah.
I think part of it, though, is the Air Force actually read the script. I think that was a bigger part of them saying, we're not going to work with you.
Probably. And then the other thing that they did to prepare for combat was that, you had to burn a mixtape.
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
And that portable tape player, it's not even a Walkman that he had. It was this portable thing he would have in his car, and then he would strap to his leg, like with Velcro or something, when he was in the jet or was walking around. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah,
it really was.
And the funny thing is, like, we listened to obviously watched the movie, and they use pretty famous bands. Queen and Twisted Sister are both on the soundtrack, and doesn't save the movie, Dave.
No.
It does not save the movie.
And overall, I wouldn't say the soundtrack is great. There's a couple good songs, but overall, some of the 80s music is pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think it's like open source,
Yeah,
some guy
yeah,
named Jim in
exactly.
his garage, jamming around, jamming, and yeah.
So anyway, they go and they steal 2 F-16s because that's pretty easy to do. I guess NORAD has the same security as the Chuck E. Cheese because they just let them go in and steal 2 F-16s. And then they have this rescue mission where Doug flies into enemy airspace like he's in some sort of video game. He dodges missiles, shoots down MiGs. He lands. He saves his dad. And unfortunately, sad part, on the mission, Chappie gets shot down and dies.
Mayday! Mayday!
Chappie! Chappie, where are you?
Just put in that tape. There's an order. Nothing you can do about me. Doug, I ain't gonna make it.
Well, we don't know that he died. He got shot down, right? And then he recorded a tape for Doug, call sign Doug, to listen to.
Call sign Doug. Yeah, so he tells him, hey, if something happens to me, play this tape. And the tape basically tells him all the things to do on the mission. It's a surprise. He didn't die. Thank God.
Well, we already know he was in some of the sequels.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So he had to go on and make 3 more sequels. So
This franchise would have been dead if Chappie had died.
I don't know how it lived after the whole movie.
Who are we going to get to replace Chappie? Lamar from Revenge of the Nerds, who was in the movie.
Who was in the movie? That's right.
Jan from The Office, who was Doug's girlfriend.
Jan from The Office was Doug's girlfriend. Yep. And it was funny because I recognized her. We were watching it together, David and I was like, she looks familiar. And immediately I had to look it up. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's Jan from The Office, man.
Yeah, she was really young, obviously. 'Cause,
Yeah.
1986.
And then so they pull off the mission. Doug lands somehow. He's not arrested, even though he stole government property. He engaged in combat.
Solid military tactics, though. Every rescue you see, it involves a jet, right? A jet landing, going Mach 10, landing on an airstrip that they've already blown up.
Yes,
somehow
yes.
landing on there, and then all of a sudden, the single seat jet becomes a 2-seater for his dad to jump into.
He rescues his dad in a 2-seat plane now that magically appeared. The second seat magically appeared. I don't know what happened there. And Doug, he gets congratulated. And then he gets into the Air Force Academy. Like, hey, good job stealing our stuff.
Yeah, no consequences for stealing classified information, which is basically treason and stealing, military. Like those jets were like $30 million back in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And one of them got actually shot down, the one Chappie was in,
Yep.
of course. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just an F-16 acting like a helicopter, shooting ground troops. And I mean, again, as a 13-year-old kid, or you were a little bit younger, 11 or 12, it was cool, right? I
remember loving this movie, Damien. Like, I remember loving this movie, and oh man, I feel bad for my 11-year-old self right now because it was so bad, dude. Like I said, it's crazy to me that they made 3 sequels. And I think the tagline should have been Iron Eagle, because the 80s said, sure, why not? Like, just, we'll just do whatever we want, right? So
it's classic 80s right there.
It is classic 80s. And
it's not just us saying this movie was unwatchable and bad. We found an LA Times review from 1986. So I'm just going to read this, right? And so the film was, quote unquote, ludicrous, preposterous, a total waste of time, saying it, quote, achieves a kind of perfection of awfulness that only earnest effort can produce, end quote.
So awesome. Oh, so is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down from that reviewer?
Well, 13-year-old Damien gives it a thumbs up. Adult Damien's going to give it pretty much a thumbs down.
Oh, gosh.
It was just a boring movie. It really was. I mean,
it was.
They didn't even get into the jets really until about an hour into it. Yeah. And I think it was about an hour and a half before the fighting actually started.
Yeah, well, the most exciting part of the first 2/3 of the film was an exciting race between a Cessna airplane and a motorcycle, Damien. Like, woo, who's going to win that?
The crazy thing is, it was really close. It was like it was a photo finish.
Cessna barely won. So
yeah, because motorbikes and Cessnas are about the same speed, and gravity doesn't come into play. Nothing. It was just insane, and that wasn't even exciting. It didn't make Doug look like a better pilot. I mean, there was some sabatage, but he still barely made that. I think he destroyed the airplane too, which wasn't his, by the way. It was owned by the Air Force.
Oh, just whatever plane is just laying around, just go ahead and take that for a race against a motorcycle, right, Damien? Exactly. So anyway, I mean, I wish I could tell the people to, go ahead and give it a watch. Maybe I should, Damien. Go ahead and give it a watch and waste. And the other thing is, Damien, it's a 2-hour movie. It's not a 90-minute, which most crappy movies are, 90 minutes. It's a 2-hour commitment, Damien.
Yeah, it drags on. It feels more like a sitcom or a made-for-TV movie, especially in the beginning.
Sure. Yeah,
I will say some of the jet scenes are pretty good. They did have the same air choreographer that Blue Thunder used, which I talked about. I think it was the last episode. But I will say Blue Thunder had some cool scenes.
The movie, not the TV show, right?
Yeah, the movie, not the TV show. Yeah, not with Dana Carvey.
Yeah,
and Dick Butkus.
The one thing that the special effects to me that were pretty funny was like Doug. His name is Doug.
Call sign
Doug would fire a missile off to shoot down an enemy plane, and all you don't see the missile flying, you just see a plane exploding. Like, they had models of planes, they threw an M80 in there, exploded it, and that was it. There was no
immediately.
Yeah. All right, so people, give it a watch if you want to waste 2 hours, and that's all I can say about that.
You gotta believe that plane you're in is like a suit of armor, like an iron eagle that nothing can penetrate.
We do want to move on to our Top Gun discussion because, I mean, Top Gun was one of my favorite movies of all time from the 1980s. Damien, you too?
It still is, yeah. And like I said earlier, I've watched it a million times just when it first came out. And over the years, I've seen it countless times.
Yeah.
So it was a fun watching it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember watching it, like you said, you and your brother rented the tape and watching it, over and over again. I definitely remember watching it over and over again. as a kid. I remember which movie theater I was in actually when I saw it for the first time.
Oh wow! So
just,
which theater was that? It's Laguna Hills.
It was Laguna Hills Mall. There's like a little 4-screen theater in there. Watching with my friend Dave. Not Dave that you know, but another Dave. I remember watching that. So
I remember I was in Woburn, Massachusetts. That's where I first saw it.
There you go. So, all right. So, give us a little bit about the plot here, Damien, of Top Gun.
Well, Top Gun, it starts off, it's a pretty cool opening scene too. You get there's a little bit of just on screen, there's some text and it talks about the Top Gun school. It started in 1969. The top 1% of all pilots get to go to the school to make them better. And it's a real school. It's in Miramar, San Diego area. So it's based on, some reality. It's no Iron Eagle, I'll tell you that.
Right.
So, and it just starts off like, one thing I will say is the movie starts off action-packed, right?
Sure.
It's not a Cessna against a motorcycle.
What?
You get right into 2 F-14s, going at a couple MiGs, right off an aircraft carrier, and there's a battle. And so, but the whole idea is that they're
MiGs from Russia?
Russia, yeah, of course.
Cue Wolverine sound clip.
Tom Cruise and Goose, they get elected to go to the Top Gun Academy, and the majority of the movie takes place in the academy. But then there's a battle, of course, at the end again against the commies. The more MiGs.
You got to.
And I think everybody knows the basic plot. If you haven't seen Top Gun,
hopefully you've seen it. It's a classic, and it's a good rewatch as well. I also like that I don't even know, the admiral on the ship that sends Maverick and Goose to the Top Gun school is the same as the principal from Back to the Future.
You're a slacker, McFly.
They're both Maverick and McFly are slackers. They get sent to Top Gun school.
I gotta give you your dream shot. I'm gonna send you up against the best. You two characters are going to Top Gun.
Welcome to the danger zone, right, Damien?
That's right. Speaking of that, great soundtrack. I mean,
absolutely.
I still love that song. You were just talking about you were at a concert and somebody was an orchestra playing that.
Yeah.
That whole soundtrack is amazing. You have Berlin, you've got Kenny Loggins, and there's it's just a great one. And if you haven't listened to that, pull it up on Spotify and just listen to it because it'll bring you right back to the movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I was at a concert last night and there was an orchestra and they started playing violin of the soundtrack. I was like, oh, Top Gun! I was excited about it. And so, Damien, we the other thing about this movie is there's so many great actors in this movie that go on, like kind of start out their careers. Obviously you have Tom Cruise, Anthony Edwards, you've got Val Kilmer, you've got Meg Ryan. Tim Robbins is actually in this movie, which we had to do like a little not rewatch, but oh yeah, that's definitely Tim Robbins.
I had forgotten that he plays Merlin. It wasn't till the end, one of the end scenes where they're congratulating each other on the aircraft carrier, because when he has his helmet on,
right,
it's really hard to recognize him. He's pretty young too, obviously.
Yeah. And Tom Skerritt was that. I remember Tom Skerritt was in a bunch of 80s movies back in the day. So
he played a great role as the Admiral in that one too. I was just rewatching it again, just for this podcast. I think it was more fun because I was looking at things I probably wouldn't have looked at normally, and maybe watching it on a big screen TV. It's at 4K or whatever now. Because you can stream it on Amazon Prime right now as well. Yeah. I think I own it anyway. But one of the things I noticed, it's a very sweaty movie.
There's a lot of sweat going on.
Every scene, everybody's sweating.
Which brings us to your favorite scene, Damien, the volleyball scene. Right?
Yeah, so last night I watched a documentary called Danger Zone, the making of the Top Gun movie, which is worth watching, right? Yeah. And so they have all the main actors and Tony Scott, the director of the movie.
Oh, man.
He is a character, man. So the volleyball scene is great, man. So I remember texting you saying this reminds me of a softcore gay porno, especially with the music. And Bill did remember with the song playing in the background.
Oh, yeah. It's playing with the boys, baby.
Kenny Loggins, right?
Oh.
As they're all sweaty, just shirtless, playing volleyball with that song in the background. And then hearing Tony Scott, the director, actually say that he didn't know what he was doing, but it was basically a soft porno. That's all he knew he was doing. And that he sprayed them. He's the original P. Diddy. He sprayed them all down with baby oil. He said
It's
this.
the original P. Diddy. Oh my gosh.
Got the guys to take all the gear off of them, the pants, and sprayed them in baby oil and sweat. And but I didn't have a vision about what I was doing other than just doing soft porn.
Yeah, so it's funny because we did some research. Tony Scott is the brother of Ridley Scott, who's made some very famous and good movies.
Yeah. And I think Tony Scott, I think this might be the only good movie he's ever made was Top Gun.
How dare you?
Which is surprising. Well, I mean, he did make The Hunger with David Bowie right before this.
The erotic thriller.
Yes.
The erotic thriller,
They
The
did
Hunger.
I think they did about $3 at the box office.
All right, so Damien, one scene that I also remember and, is the Kelly McGillis Kelly McGillis, Tom Cruise sex scene in her little shack there, in San Diego, and
Her bungalow.
Her bungalow, that's right, her bungalow. So, Damien, give us some thoughts on that sex scene.
Well, I will say again, 13-year-old Damien probably had a different view of this, right? I know you did probably too.
Did you feel different when you saw that scene?
I think you told me earlier that this is the first time you ever saw a character's French kiss, right?
That's very true. That's very true. And like there was a lot of tongue going on in that scene.
It was a very classic 80s movie, a sex scene, but it was all silhouettes and tongue. It was cringe watching it now. It's not sexy. And even though I love Tom Cruise as an actor, he does not have that kind of sex appeal with women. He just comes across as like asexual, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
he's, again, a great actor. I don't know if it's a Scientology thing. Maybe Zeno does not approve of that. But yeah, it's it was a cringe scene to watch as an adult.
But Damien, did it take your breath away?
It did, not in a good way though.
All right, and of course there's a
wait. We got to talk about Kelly McGillis just for a second.
Oh yeah.
So this is another thing from the documentary.
Oh, the documentary, yeah.
The behind the scenes, where the director Tony Scott said, and this is a quote because she was in the movie Witness, and he said, "I saw her with her shirt off, so she got the role."
They kept saying to me, "Stop making Kelly look so good or so glamorous." Yeah. And they thought I had a Madonna whore complex, so they were putting Kelly in seam stockings, and she's really nasty in these 9-inch pumps, and did all this makeup on her.
He's a total perv, man.
Weinstein financed this film or what? Jeez.
Yeah, there was no Me Too in the 80s.
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so, obviously everybody knows the movie, but one of the things that I thought was interesting was, or not interesting, but like when Goose dies, like I remember being devastated. Like I remember crying watching Goose, because you didn't see movies where one of the main characters dies in the middle of it, right? Like,
and probably the most likable character, because Maverick isn't the most likable guy. He's cocky, he's arrogant.
Yeah.
But Anthony Edwards, Goose, wasn't like that. He had a
young family. Yeah, exactly.
Meg Ryan, and then of course Little Roosters.
and he's a hell of a piano player, right?
Yeah, Great Balls of Fire.
Yeah, and so it just was very emotional. I remember watching that, and then of course Maverick's got to figure it out, got to like rebound and either decide to stay with the Navy or not, and he of course decides to stay and goes on to. There's an international incident brewing, and wouldn't you know it, only the Top Gun grads can fix it.
Right.
Of course,
Iceman.
That's right. And so Maverick takes the skies with Iceman and saves the day. He earns his rival's respect. You could be my wingman anytime, and then there was a big bro hug at the end. Great movie.
It was a great movie. And, I will say one thing about Top Gun. If it was released right now in 2025, as is, I think it would be a blockbuster. I mean,
yeah.
There was no real CGI again, because back in '86, you would have noticed if it was bad, like an Iron Eagle. There's some bad scenes, you mentioned.
Yeah, so terrible.
But they really worked. They did work with the Navy. They were on an aircraft carrier. All the young actors who played the pilots, they all went through a short course and went up in F-14s, and it was very realistic and very practical effects. And I I would watch it. If it was in the movie now and just dropped, you've never seen it before, I would go out and say it's still a good movie. It holds up almost 40, and we're almost 40 years.
Yeah, and I wonder if it was really probably a good, not, I'm not gonna say propaganda, but recruitment tool for the Navy, because when you think Navy, you're like, oh, stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean, but no, these were badass pilots, that just happened to be on an aircraft carrier. I'm sure that they had a ton of people enlisting the Navy after this movie.
I'm sure, especially, with the Cold War, and they made it look cool, and it was cool. I mean,
it was cool.
Those were cool jets. And again, these are the 80s where these jets were pretty new. They just came out mostly in the late 70s, 80s, all these cool jets. And this was new technology, and a lot of people hadn't seen stuff like this.
Right.
And they did make being a Navy pilot in the Navy cool.
Look cool, yeah, for
and
sure.
Just speaking of that, just some more stuff in the documentary. It was funny because, again, all the actors, they were all in their early 20s, including Tom Cruise, I think, and Val Kilmer, and they partied hard. Like, I think
sure.
like a lot of the pilots
sure, yeah.
probably did, at least in the movie.
Yeah.
There was one scene where I think it was Slider, the guy who played Slider, was talking about how they would go party in Mexico in Val Kilmer's van, and he mentioned this is the van Val Kilmer lost his virginity in.
There you go. All right. Very famous van.
They would go party. And then there was another time where I think it was Slider and Val Kilmer, Iceman, the actual actors got kicked off of the aircraft carrier.
Oh my gosh.
Because they were just partying and causing so much havoc. Slider was telling a story about, for whatever reason, he couldn't find a place to nap, and he went and took an officer's bed.
Oh, jeez.
And the officer came, and they were in the military.
Right.
They didn't respect the military, and the officer came and told him to get out of his bed, and Slider basically told him to go F off.
Oh wow.
And then they weren't on the aircraft carrier after that.
Yeah, I was like, here's a boat, tug your way back to the shore or whatever. I do believe that this helped the Navy recruitment, whereas Iron Eagle, I think less people probably enrolled enlisted in the Air Force because they're like, the Air Force sucks. Someone's going to come in and capture us because these kids were able to pull off this heist, right?
Yeah, not to mention the hero wasn't even an Air Force pilot at the time. He was a kid, and because the Air Force wouldn't do anything. I think the Air Force is still reeling from Iron Eagle.
Because watch out for Doug.
Yeah,
Doug. All right.
Just one other thing I noticed.
Last thoughts here, Damien.
Tom Cruise had a unibrow, and there's a lot of close-ups, sweaty scenes, and he had the unibrow. And just as we saw in Teen Wolf and 80s porn, it was a hairy decade.
It was a hairy decade. So, hey, out there, we would love your thoughts. If you've recently seen Iron Eagle or Top Gun, let us know what you think about either of those films, positively or negatively. We told you our thoughts. You can always email us at 80showpodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Instagram, Facebook. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these two classic. Well, one's a classic movie.
They're both classics in age, and one is actually a good classic.
Good movie, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, Damien, for our next segment, we are going to be talking about the Iron Eagle sequels, Iron Eagle 2, Aces, Iron Eagle 3, and Iron Eagle on the Attack. No, just kidding, everybody. We are going to be reviewing our watch of not Iron Eagle, sorry, of Top Gun Maverick, which was a really good sequel, Damien.
It was excellent. I was really, really impressed. I was a little bit nervous because, again, you take such a classic, great film from the 80s, and we do a lot of remakes, reboots, and sequels, modern day. And this one, I was really, really impressed with. I thought I don't have anything negative to say about it.
I mean, it's no Aces, Iron Eagle 3, but it's still pretty damn good. So, Damien, give us some facts and figures about this movie.
It did slightly better than Iron Eagle 4. It was actually filmed in 2018 for the spring of 2019.
Okay.
But there was a little something that happened in 2020, if anybody remembers. There was a little thing called COVID, and
Yep.
movie theaters were apparently closed during that time.
Yep, that's true. I remember that.
And so it was originally going to come out in the summer of the summer tentpole movie of 2020, but they did delay it up until 2022.
Okay.
Which now looking at, I think was a good move because it was the number one movie of 2022.
Yeah.
Again, just like Top Gun was in 1986. It made $719 million at the box office.
Wow.
And it did have a big budget, a lot bigger than the original Top Gun. It was about $177 million.
Oh, like 10 times as big as the original Top Gun then.
Yeah, yeah. And I can see why Tom Cruise didn't want to release it during COVID.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he had a big piece of the back end, right? He didn't have a huge salary up front for an A-lister like him. I think he made like 10 to 15 million for an A-lister. That's not that much. But he made, I think I read it was like 100 million on the back end.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I saw it on the big screen. I thought it was fantastic on the big screen. I think it was like one of the maybe first movies I went to in person after COVID-19 pandemic. But
I remember you and I talking about it too. I think it was in 2021 when we were first kind of out and about, and we were talking about when they were going to release it and hoping they would. And actually, we were planning, a segment for it before we took our hiatus.
Exactly. So anyway, as far as the plot of the movie goes, Maverick's back. He's breaking all the rules still. He's still flying fast. He is not getting promoted, though.
I think he got demoted a few times. Promoted and then demoted.
Yeah.
Because he's a captain, which I believe in the Navy is just above lieutenant. I know that in the Army it is.
Okay.
And so he should have not been at, 65 years old, whatever he is. It's 40 years later.
And so, what I like about this movie is that it looks like the 80s. It feels like the 80s. Even the very first scene is the classic music from the original Top Gun. You're seeing jets firing up on an aircraft carrier taking off, and it felt like we were back in the 80s watching the beginning of that movie.
Yeah, they did a great job with that, keeping that 80s theme, but also bringing it to modern times, right?
Yeah.
I think they did it's a tough needle to thread, but I think they did a great job.
Yeah, and so Tom Cruise, he's wearing the same jacket. He's got the same smile. Is he a vampire, Damien? I don't know.
It's a different movie, I think.
Okay.
Although I will say, just because I did watch Top Gun again. I watched it a few times this in preparation for this, and then I watched Top Gun Maverick back to back with Top Gun, and I can't believe he might be a vampire. He looks like 5 years older than he did in 1986. I don't know if he's good genetics or if he has good doctor, like plastic surgeons, or if it's that vampire blood, or is it L. Ron Hubbard as Xenu from Scientology keeping him young?
The power of Dianetics, right, Damien?
I'm ready to join the cult right now. I think it only costs a couple million to get to the highest level of Scientology he's at.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I could look like him, right?
There you go.
And he's a little bit older than us too.
He's way older than us, Damien. How dare you? How dare you? And so kicks off. The one thing that I noticed, he's even riding the same motorcycle from Top Gun. I'm like, you want to upgrade there, Maverick, or no? But of course, what did I notice, Damien?
You noticed. You texted me this when you're watching it. Can't drive 55 sticker on.
Yes, there's a can't drive 55. Shout out to my idol, Sammy Hagar. And so, the plot is that the Navy needs a mission pulled off. It's so insane that it makes, a flight simulator look tutorial. Like it's an insane mission, right, Damien?
Right. And John Hamm can't handle it himself.
Yeah, John Hamm that's just an interesting pick for that role, but I bought it. I
think he did a good job. He kind of plays a prick in a lot of his roles, which is weird. Which maybe I'm not sure it's acting.
Right.
But I do like him. He's a good actor.
Yeah. So of course they call the one guy who has not followed a rule since Reagan was in office, right? Maverick.
Yeah. And I love how in Top Gun Maverick he does stay true to his name, Maverick.
Yeah,
because he is a Maverick.
Yeah.
And he's just a little bit more humbled and a little bit more mature, slightly tamed, but he's still a Maverick.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a new squad of hotshot pilots, including Rooster, who is Goose's son. He's rocking that mustache that Anthony Edwards had back in 1986.
And the Hawaiian shirt, too. When he walks into the bar,
absolutely,
they did a great job. I mean, Miles Teller, I don't know how they did it, but they made him look a lot like Anthony Edwards. The way they lit him, just the background, the scenery, the lighting in the bar, the Hawaiian shirt, the aviator glasses, and then him going to the piano and playing Great Balls of Fire a little bit later. I mean, that was awesome. Yeah. I got some chills with it. I really got some chills with that.
That was a great homage to the first film, great homage to Goose. It was great. Yeah, the stash was just something special. Like, just like they were like, oh, they just copied it from Goose's face to Rooster's face. So
that was a straight up Magnum PI stash. It was great, dude. That was a good stash because I can't grow a mustache. I can grow a lot of facial hair. Just my mustache looks creepy. I look like a '70s porn star when I grow a mustache.
Well, I mean, Anthony Edwards kind of looked like that a little bit. Just gonna put that out there. So anyway, so we've got some angsty piano playing in the bar, and we're introduced to also Jennifer Connelly, who plays Penny.
And she's smoking hot, by the way. I mean, she's a great actress, but she's also smoking hot. I'm not sure how she got this role because I'm not sure the director saw her topless, like Kelly McGillis did. Her role witness.
Yes, Damien. So anyway, of course, Penny is the Admiral's daughter referenced in the original Top Gun.
With a history of high-speed passes over 5 air-controlled towers and 1 Admiral's daughter.
Penny Benjamin.
And I didn't catch that until you told me that. That was a great catch.
Yeah.
Because they referenced it actually twice in the original Top Gun movie.
Yeah. So anyway, of course we have the beach scene 2.0, and we have traded football for volleyball, right?
Yeah, or the other way around, but yeah.
Well, wait, no, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We traded, whatever.
Oh, I see what you're saying, but it's the original. I don't think there was quite as much baby oil or sweat.
Well, I mean, they were still a little bit sweaty because the sun was setting, so it was a little bit harder to see, but they were still shirtless, Damien.
Yeah, and still wearing jeans like they did in the original, shirtless and jeans.
Exactly.
I will say Tom Cruise, I think, is actually in better shape in his 60s than he was when he was in his 20s. It's crazy. No, it's really nuts.
Here's a plug for L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics.
Our new sponsor for the 80 Show podcast, Dianetics.
And so, this shirtless, action is, still confusingly important in military training, right?
Yeah, that's the number one key thing is to get naked on the beach and play sports. And, it's about men. It's manly men.
So then, of course, we get some action there. We get Maverick being Mavericks, and
and you get to see Tom Cruise running a few times, which there is like a rumor out there that he, in his contracts, he has to run every movie. And I think it's true.
It's funny because you said that earlier today, and I was like thinking back on some of his movies, and even like a legal thriller like The Firm, he's running in The Firm. Like I think you're right. I think there's something to be said about that. Obviously the Mission Impossible movies, but I think every movie he's got to be running. So we've got dogfights and barrel rolls and G4, Mach 10, we're talking about in this movie.
And the great thing I liked, just going back to your point earlier, how they brought back the 80s with this, and they referenced they could have used the F-35, but it wasn't appropriate for this mission. So they brought back the F-18s, which were originally around in the 80s. So I like that. They explained why they used a little bit of an older jet compared to the newer modern F-35 stealth jet.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've got the other thing that I appreciated about this movie is, and Tom Cruise does this, is real stunts, real planes, real midlife crisis too, like that he's going through.
That was a little too real. A little too hard.
Yeah.
We all have some life choices that we, question. I mean, it was not his fault that Goose died. I really wasn't. I mean,
no.
But the fact he's carrying around that guilt, we all do. Especially as you hit your 50s and I'm assuming 60s. We're all dealing with that. And I liked how they brought that and humanized him. And they made him a little bit less cocky.
Yes.
Even though he still had that edge to him.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if in the original Top Gun, if he was just a cocky bad boy or if he just had misdiagnosed ADHD.
Well, it could be. For sure PTSD. His dad died in Vietnam, so there was something going on there. But so, I mean, it really did feel like an ultimate nostalgia trip. It feels like you put on a 1980s helmet and launched right into 2022. If you like the original, you're gonna really love this film, right, Damien?
Absolutely, I loved it. I thought it was great. I don't have anything negative to say about it. I think it was just really well done from start to finish. I think the actors they put together were really good. It was just a really well done movie.
Yeah, and the cool thing, of course, the one, we're not gonna, we're going to spoil the movie a little bit, but like them going and stealing the F-14s to make it like 1986, that was awesome.
That was a cool scene, especially with Rooster riding in the rear as Goose did in his dad's place.
Exactly.
It gave me the chills watching that. And it also kind of did remind me a little bit of Iron Eagle and Firefox from the 80s, where they're going in to steal an airplane.
Call sign Doug. Yeah, exactly. And so unlike Iron Eagle 4, wait, hang on, Damien. Iron Eagle 4 on the attack.
It wasn't Iron Eagle 77 from the nursing home.
Louis Gossett Jr. died before that. Anyway, wow, sad to say that. But anyway, we definitely give it 2 thumbs up. You got to rewatch this.
I will say it's basically the original Top Gun minus Tom Cruise's unibrow.
Yes, there you go.
But I want to say one thing that I noticed when I was watching the briefing scene, when they're briefing them on flying the F-15 or the F-18s into the,
this is great.
I think it was a nuclear, enrichment facility, right? They had to go into this little crater. I'm like, and they're saying you have to hit a 3 meter wide, target. I'm like, God, this really sounds familiar. Like, this sounds like Star Wars with a Death Star.
Man.
And I went back and rewatched on YouTube that scene from Star Wars where they're giving that briefing about going
from Episode 4, New Hope. Yeah.
And the only thing missing was Maverick saying, it's like shooting Womp Brats back home. It was exactly the same. The only difference was like 2 meters versus 3 meters. And when I watched the documentary about the original Top Gun, they did say one of the inspirations for this was almost like making a Star Wars on Earth.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where they kind of put that in. I mean, it's pretty close to being word for word.
When you told me that, I was like, no. And then I was thinking more about it. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what blowing up the Death Star was. A little tiny 2 meter entry place, which was actually expanded to 3 meters in Top Gun Maverick. But
and it was just concave versus convex, right? That's all they changed. And it
so
was on
good.
Earth versus space. But you know what? I love that. It actually was. It was a pretty cool callback.
Great homage to Star Wars. Great homage to the original Top Gun movie, and
not to mention afterwards, Tom Cruise and Rooster in the F-14 buzzing the tower. Come on,
you got to buzz the tower. I mean, classic. I mean, absolutely do that, and then you got to bro hug it out at the end,
and also bringing back Val Kilmer despite his health issues. I thought that was a class act. And, I can speak from experience a little bit where, sometimes when you get sick or have health issues, people tend to drop you, right?
Right.
But they didn't ignore that. They played into it. And that was really cool because he was a huge part of the original Top Gun.
It's funny rewatching Maverick. I was like, I got emotional watching the funeral scene and stuff like that for Iceman. But
and to see that Maverick and Iceman became truly friends and respected each other, even though they're both a little cocky. And you saw in the original Top Gun, right?
Yeah.
They especially the scene where, at the end,
you can be my wingman anytime.
They really did start respecting each other. And even though Tom Cruise continued to be a Maverick and kind of a screw up, right?
Right.
Iceman protected him. And that was really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as far as the 80 Show podcast goes, we definitely give that 2 thumbs up, right, Damien?
Absolutely. It's a great movie to watch. I highly recommend it. I bought it. I mean, I love the movie. I've watched it a few times.
Yeah. So go ahead and give it a listen. Go ahead and give it a watch. I mean, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings about the movie. And so you can hit us up on all the socials and 80showpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Up next, we have Ask a Millennial and Bill Hit the Streets.
Yeah, that's right, Damien. So I hit the streets to ask millennials different questions about the 1980s. Of course, I'll be honest with you. I don't know the difference between a millennial and a Gen Z. So some people said, but I'm Gen Z. I'm like, I don't care. We're going to record this anyway, right? And so basically, and Damien, I know you know the answers to these questions. I asked 3 questions, which was, number 1, how do you avoid the Noid?
I love that question.
Remember the Noid back in the 80s?
I had a Noid t-shirt.
Oh, yeah?
In fact, if I can find the picture, I'll post it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, when I was, I think, 13 or 14, I had a picture of me on my birthday wearing a Avoid the Noid
Avoid
t-shirt.
the Noid, yeah. The other thing I asked was, what did Bill and Ted use to time travel?
Well, that's a good question, too. Again, we've covered that in a few episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so finally, I asked, who hosted the lifestyles of the rich and famous?
Ooh, another thing we covered just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so go ahead and listen to this and see what millennials out there believe. First question is, how do you avoid the Noid?
I avoid the Noid by ignoring it, and I just don't give it any mind at all.
You avoid the Noid by going into the void.
I don't even know what the Noid is. What is a Noid? I go in my room and I hibernate.
I have no idea, but I'm thinking it has something to do with Fast Times at Ridgemont High, no?
The Noid?
Okay, I know that's an ad campaign from the 80s. I want to say it was for a pizza place.
I would walk away, leave it alone. I have no idea. I'm speechless. I have no idea what to say.
What did Bill and Ted use to time travel?
Is this a Back to the Future reference or car?
It's probably like what's it called? That one movie? I forgot, but a car. A time machine that they built together.
Phone booth.
And this is the Keanu Reeves movie, right? I didn't see it. I know they went to San Dimas. That's all I know.
I've never seen the movie, but I'll guess a phone booth.
They used a telephone booth. A bathtub. I don't know.
Final question is, who hosted the TV show Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous?
Good Charlotte. Ooh. Wayne Brady?
I forget his name. It's the British dude.
My guess is Mario Lopez, but I know that's not right.
I have no clue. I've never seen it. Now, Devo.
I don't know, but that's a good Charlotte song.
All right, Damien. So there you have it. Ask a Millennial. I think we need to get some more information out there about the 1980s to our Millennial friends.
Yeah, definitely. But I was impressed. A few people there knew it. I heard some Gen Z voices in there too. I don't think it was just pure millennials.
I just, if it's not Gen X, I don't care.
Exactly. No other generation matters besides Gen X anyway.
So it's just, make sure that how do you avoid the Noid, Damien?
Clearly you order from Domino's Pizza.
There you go. And what did Bill and Ted use to time travel?
A phone booth with a broken umbrella on the top.
That's right. And who hosted the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous?
Robin Leach.
So
not Devo, apparently.
Not Devo, but that was a great answer. I think he just let me think of a 1980s thing, and
it was a better answer than Mario Lopez, at least.
Wow. So in the future we'll have some more Ask a Millennial questions out there, and if you have some suggestions that you would want us to ask, go ahead and hit us up on all the socials and 80showpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll hit the streets again, Damien.
That's right. We're going to ask the hard questions.
So that's it for this episode of the 80 Show Podcast. Damien, what are we going to talk about next episode?
Well, first up next week, we're going to talk about Where Are They Now? Breakfast Club Edition.
Right on. And we're going to follow that with the top music of 1987, Damien. And what we'll finish it off with.
And up last, we have 1980-something trivia.
All right, that sounds great. And so alongside... Oh, what is that noise?
That's the evil sound of the fax machine.
All right. Damien, what does it say?
Well, apparently Columbia House was never a sponsor. We just received a postcard for 12 tapes for a penny, and we signed up for that.
Oh, yes. All right. So 12 tapes that we can pick any 12 tapes we want to, right?
Yeah, it's only a penny. Apparently after that, we're going to have to pay full price of $30 per tape for the rest of our lives.
Sounds like a deal. So, of course, if you want to sponsor a podcast about the 1980s, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you because every single one just doesn't seem to work out, right, Damien?
Yeah, or just write us a check. That's fine too. We do accept checks.
A paper check.
Food stamps, green stamps, whatever you got.
Whatever,
throw it in there.
Whatever. If you can do us a favor and please rate us on wherever you listen to podcasts. All you have to do is click 5 stars. Right, Damien?
Yeah. On Spotify, it's really easy, and the same with Apple Podcasts and most of the podcast networks. You don't even have to write a full review. You can if you want to. You want to say great things about Bill and I and how funny we are. And...
Oh, there we go. Or handsome. Either one's fine.
But yeah, seriously, please click 5 stars. It really helps us out, helps other people find us on the podcast networks.
There you go. And always, you can follow us on the social medias, and you can email us at 80showpodcast@gmail.com. And hey, I'm Bill Lassiter, call sign Mixtape. I've got the need for speed.
I'm Damien, call sign Doug Raffelli. If you're still dangerous, you could be my wingman anytime. Theme song composed by my good friend, fellow rock star, straight out of Bakersfield. You may also know him from the band Videodrone, Mark Russell Davis.